Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Pink Nest podcast. I have Sara with me today. She's a mentor for teen girls and midlife women, emotional intelligence expert, survivor turned guide. And her mission is helping women turn trauma and insecurities into deep self-knowing. Hi, Sara. I'm so really happy to
Hi,
have you here.
I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's start where we always start, and this is our earliest experiences in this world. Would you like to share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it really is the basis of everything that I do. So it's an important part for me. So my early childhood, my stepfather was quite abusive, and my mum, who loved me dearly and was very affectionate, was also very, very volatile. And my father, my biological father, who I was very close to, moved away when I was quite young. So I was very sensitive as a child. I was very attuned to everybody else's emotions and needs and not my own, because of those experiences. And I think that, yeah, I think I learned very early on to shut out what I was feeling and what I needed in order to keep the peace, allow others to feel more comfortable, not be seen, all of those things that we struggle with, especially, as women. I think we probably struggle with that a little bit more, but, it affects all of us. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And would you say that your story, your childhood story, is somehow an inspiration, I would say, to the calling that you've answered in supporting young teen girls and midlife women specifically?
Yeah, definitely. Excuse me. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that especially when you have painful periods and painful experiences in your childhood, there comes a time when, through healing that and through understanding how that changed you, changed your perspectives, changed what you were prepared to accept in the world, what you thought you deserved, all of those things. When you go through that healing process, you look at all of those things. And if you do it with real curiosity instead of judgment, for me especially, and for a lot of women that I work with as well, it comes to a place where the pain becomes something more purposeful. It becomes something that, once you understand and stop judging yourself for all the things that you think it's your fault and all the things that I maybe did wrong, and we step away from the shame of it, we do the healing. And then you come to a place where that pain becomes a purpose. You start to realize, okay, yes, it took away certain things. So my childhood meant that I was less secure. I had insecurity issues. I didn't speak up, ask for what I wanted, didn't really have a voice. So it took away my confidence, some of those things. But I'm a big believer in everything that gets taken away, something of equal or greater value comes in its place. And I don't think you can really access those gifts until you look at the difficult parts with real curiosity, like I said before, and without judgment. I think it's one of those things, we don't look at them because they're quite painful and uncomfortable. And there's still a part of us that says, well, maybe it was my fault. Maybe it was something I did. Maybe I could have done something differently. And so we're kind of judging ourselves as much as anything all the time. And um, we don't delve deep into why we feel the way that we feel. But when you do that, you begin to see that, okay, well, it because of the emotions I was feeling, that's how I behaved then. But this is what I also learned. This is what I gained. And for me, my empathy, my diplomacy, my communication skills, my understanding of others, my intuition, a lot of those things were built in those moments, and I think we often talk about how pain shapes us and shapes um, our perspective on life, but healing does the same thing. shapes us, shapes our perspective on life. And when we go through that process, you then start to realize, actually, I'm never going to be grateful. I'm never going to be grateful for what happened to me as a child. I think that's something that sometimes, especially in coaching, it's like, oh, you should be grateful for everything. I don't hold to that. I'm never going to be grateful for it. I'm always going to feel badly for the little girl that had to go through that. But I can now appreciate what I gained from it, what I learned from it, and the best parts of my personality and behaviors that stemmed from that same thing. And I think that is the healing process. I think that's what changes you. And now I think I've become the mentor that I needed at 15, 25, 35, because I see how being in the pain shaped all of my choices and changed my life trajectory, and how the healing process has helped it. So yeah, it's a big part of everything that I do now, really.
Yeah. And I think that you mentioned also one really important point, how we are usually ourselves, our own enemies. I mean, the worst enemies probably, because I think that I totally agree with you. We should not be grateful for everything. That's definitely one of the things I would totally agree with you. However, usually the biggest challenge is ourselves. And this is such an important part of any healing process, I think, at least. Because, of course, the therapist or whomever you're working with will only get you so far, while everything else has to come from yourself somehow. Usually it's digging deep, and that's the most challenging bit for sure. Um, so let's talk about now the emotional intelligence bit, because I think that this is something that is worth explaining. I'm sure many of our listeners will not know what the EQ means in the description, which I will put on. So I would love to hear a few sentences on what this is, how to use it with your work, how it helps you, and so on.
Yeah, I think for me, it is so I'm quite a spiritual person, but I'm also quite a pragmatic person. And I believe in science. So for me, emotional intelligence has become the bridge between what I would label as spirit, or someone would say intuition, and what's going on for you mentally and psychologically. Emotional intelligence brings real clarity to my decision making and to people's decision making. It brings real understanding when you can recognize your own patterns. You recognize how you're influencing the experience that you're receiving in return. So emotional intelligence for me it really is that link in between. And it's so important. I don't think we place enough emphasis on how big a part of our life experience our emotions play. We kind of treat them as if they're a bit of a side note. But really, the brain ranks significance through a filter of emotions. So how you feel about something determines how your brain processes information, what it brings your attention to. It affects everything, all your challenges in life, your relationships. It really does affect everything. And I think if you don't have at least a foundational kind of grasp on what's actually happening inside your body and in your mind when you're experiencing certain emotions, then my thing is you're not really making those choices from a sovereign state. You're not making those choices from this is what I feel and this is what I want best. You're making those choices from reactions and perspectives that you don't fully understand. So I think that's where, for me, it really is emotional intelligence and understanding how our emotions work and affect both our physical and mental well-being is, it's a fundamental part of who we are. And our relationship with ourselves is based on those emotional feelings. What we feel about ourselves determines how we receive other people. It determines our friendships, our relationships, how we react to colleagues. When you change the relationship with yourself, and like before we talked about judgment and curiosity, when you treat yourself with a huge amount of compassion and curiosity, you automatically extend that to the people around you, and that changes your entire life experience.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're quite alike in this because I'm also quite I'm consider myself quite a spiritual person, but at the same time, I'm also very much into science. So I think this bridge between, um, it's a really, I really like exploring these things as well. I think they're really important and we don't nearly pay enough attention to them. And this is, I think, also one of the biases of the modern world because we do have all of this information at our hands. Like, I mean, we can get our hands onto anything we want to, basically, with ChatGPTs and Google and everything else. But we just somehow forgot to do that. We're really happy with a very how to say, not very deep connections at all. I think
Yeah.
everything is more surface based. Yeah. Um, you've mentioned sovereignty? What does it mean to you? And how do you help women reclaim it in their everyday lives?
So again, it forms a kind of a loop, because when you begin to understand, I find a lot of women, especially, and I imagine this is the same thing for men, but I don't personally work with men on a one-to-one basis, only in sort of educational uh, settings. So it's not, I don't go so deep, and my lived experiences as a woman. So, I can speak on that with at least some authority. um, but I think for me, it's a loop. When we understand the reasons why we back down, when we understand our emotions, we then begin to understand why is it when someone gives us a certain visual or mental cue, do we back down? Do we step away from what we were thinking? Do we, you have those moments, and I'm sure you will experience them, where you get that, someone gives you, it happened to me recently, someone gives you an eye roll or a sigh or and a little part of you takes a step back and just kind of fades a little bit, doesn't want to speak into that, doesn't want to carry on saying not what they wanted to say, because those little moments of sort of micro contempt, they trigger the emotions that we feel, the feelings of being too much or not being enough, or all of those like sort of insecurities. Are we being too difficult? Are we being arrogant? Are we being stupid? Are we, all of those things we judge them because they make us feel a certain way. That eye roll, that sigh, that dismissive, attitude makes us feel a certain way. And so because we feel that way and we don't understand why we necessarily feel that way, which is the emotional intelligence piece, we shrink away from it. It's uncomfortable, so we shrink away from it and we don't speak our truth. We don't carry on saying the thing that we wanted to say because a signal from somebody else has told us it's not safe, it's not okay. Get back in your box. Don't be too difficult. Don't be too loud. Don't say you need anything. All those things, which I think we experience a lot. So we step away from them. So for me, sovereignty is when you understand why you do those things, what the emotions are telling you, what's actually happening in your body, and how they're related to old patterns and old behaviors. When you get that sigh or that eye roll or that cue that you interpret as being too much or stepping out of line, instead of fading back, you have a response. You have a response to say, okay, I understand that seems to make you feel uncomfortable, but I'm going to carry on saying what I need to say right now because I feel like it needs to be said. Or you say, when you do that, I feel really uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable because how it lands for me is as contempt or dismissal. And that opens the conversation, it opens connection, and you remain true to who you are and being able to say things. So for me, sovereignty is about when we stop apologizing for who we are, when we speak our truth without running it through filters that make everybody else feel comfortable. because is, we do try a lot. We try an awful lot to make sure other people feel comfortable and that they're okay with our presence and that we're not. But life's not like that. It's not. Some people sometimes are going to be uncomfortable, and that is okay. If you are not intentionally setting out to do harm and you're not trying to do that, but something that you've said has brought up somebody else's own emotions about how they feel about themselves, that's okay. If we don't stick to our truth, they do not realize why they're having that reaction. And they don't get to own their truth. They don't get to heal. So it's all about connection. And so sovereignty for me isn't about being alone and being stood in our truth and, keeping everybody else out. It's about standing in our truth in a kind and compassionate way that also allows others to see how we handle those moments, and it gives them permission to do the same thing. So instead of all backing away from each other because we don't want to upset or we don't want to make people feel uncomfortable, we move through the discomfort in a kind and compassionate way so that everyone steps a little bit closer. Everyone leans in a bit more rather than stepping out. So for me, sovereignty is about owning your truth, not apologizing, being who you are in a kind, compassionate way, and allowing others people to do the same thing, because I think that's what we all need to actually bring us closer together instead of being scared of interacting with each other in case anybody upsets anyone. It's kind of going, look, we're all doing the best we can with what we've got right now. Let's make some space for that and try and do it together.
Yeah, I think this is really important because I think we are taught from childhood, like, be yourself. And then somewhere along the way, we start behaving like you've said. Oh my gosh, did I hurt somebody's feelings? Oh, what does this person think of me? Am I too loud? Probably I shouldn't said that. Things like this. And it's so much, I think this is a really great conversation because we are pointing out everything what's happening in our lives and within ourselves that needs to go hand in hand in order to make this happen. Like, really to be sovereign and to be, true to yourself in a way, without feeling bad about yourself or about others. Such an important, really important conversation. Love this. How do you think, we talk about this self-knowing, deep self-knowing a lot. But for someone who has been through certain trauma in the life, and probably there are a lot of insecurities, how do you turn this trauma into deep self-knowing? Because this is something that you already spoken at the beginning, but I think maybe getting a little bit deeper into the conversation would really help. Also
Yeah,
listeners to understand.
I believe that we carry a lot of shame from the things that happen to us. And like I said before, that shapes our perspective when we judge ourselves because of it. And because we because we're looking at it through that lens of judgment and shame, it makes us feel too uncomfortable to really dig around about what's actually really going on. When we can say, okay, right, this thing happened, from a practical mindset, it's like, okay, I know it wasn't my fault, but there's something inside me that still feels shameful, or it still feels hurt. It's still in pain because of that situation. I wonder what that is all about. What is it that I am not listening to? What is it that I need? Because discomfort, anything that we are, pain, discomfort, fear, all of those things, they're really only signals from your body to pay attention to something. That's all it really is. It's not something to run from and be fearful of, because it's really just saying, look, there's this thing. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right. Maybe your attention needs to go there, and then we can solve it. So it's kind of looking at it in a really, like I said before, it's very curious. It's being very compassionate and very curious when we look at things. And it's okay to say, okay, when I was, 12, 13, 14, and these things were going on, as a child, I still felt that it was somehow wrong and it was still kind of painful, and that's okay. It's okay to feel that way. But how is this affecting me now? In what situations do I still feel that way? In what situations am I reminded of that and then for reverting to being that 12, 13, 14-year-old child and reacting from that space? So when you start to be really curious and you dig deep into, okay, well, why and how is this situation, and we see it in our romantic relationships primarily, but it happens, these things can be triggered in any environment. And so whenever we're having this reaction, it's kind of, that's for us to examine, and that's for us to go, okay, why do I do that? What need is it that is not getting met at the moment? What fear is it that's surfacing? What am I hearing that's making me really, or seeing that's making me really uncomfortable? Where does it come from and why? And when we start to unravel that, it changes the way we react and the way that we make decisions. Because we're no longer, it's the same like your brain works where I can't remember like something like affect labeling or whatever it's called now. And when you label something, you're able to name the emotion, it automatically helps speed up the processing. So when you actually look at the emotion, look at where it comes from, how it's changing your behavior, it speeds up that whole process of, okay, well, I understand that now. I understand why I do what I do, because in that moment, I'm feeling what I felt when I was 12, 13 years old. But I'm not 12 or 13 years old anymore. Now I am, 47, and I don't, I understand it. I don't have to make the same choices. So when you get to that real level of self-knowing, it expands your choices. Because when you don't know yourself, you're making choices. You're making choices to either prove something, you're making choices to belong, you're making choices to, make other people feel comfortable. You're not really making those choices for yourself because they're coming from reactions. So when you really understand why you react the way you do, which means digging into some of that stuff that's really uncomfortable, it changes your choices. So I have these things I call like the 3 seeds to legacy. And one of them is like, the first one is always, it's about ownership instead of blame. It's about kind of, okay, not this is my fault, not somebody else's is fault. So it's, what is my part in this? And how can I understand it and how can I change it? That's the first thing. If we take ownership for something instead of blame for something, how does that change things? And then when we start to look at things with compassion and curiosity instead of judgment, that makes a big difference. And then when we start to show up in the world that way, the way that other people react to us changes. I think that's probably for me, there are steps to kind of really understanding and owning who you are, and that will change your life experience, because your life isn't changed by the people around you. Because if you feel a certain way inside, you're always going to feel that way inside, regardless of who is there,
Mm.
because something's always going to touch on that. So you can't change the world, your world, through anything that's outside of you. You can only change it from what's inside of you.
Yeah, definitely. Um, you are working with teen girls, which is something that I found really meaningful. And it's not really common. I mean, you're probably the first person I stumble upon that does something like that, and it's really, really something. Yeah, I'm really in awe of. What would you say that are the skills or emotional skills teen girls and midlife women most need right now in a world that's moving so fast? Because it is a little bit of an unprecedented time in life that, I mean, in history that we live
Yeah,
at the
it,
moment. So yeah, would love to hear it.
it really is. So the reason I work with teen girls and midlife women is because it's kind of, it's two ends of the same thing. So teen girls, they're entering a period of time, like a teen brain is going through a huge emotional uplift in processing, and rational thinking is not, is not yet caught up. So everything's very emotional. and you're also coming in independence and stepping away slightly from parental guidance and all of those things. So the way that you're making decisions as a teen girl is you're trying to find your independence and how you feel about something, but everything's kind of a bit heightened. And you're also trying to step away from some of the stuff that you're told you have to do by parents, teachers, all that kind of stuff. So it's about becoming, it's really guiding teen girls to understand how they feel, how they really feel outside of what they've been told to feel or what they've learned from their experiences, how they really feel, and be able to name it and be able to hold that truth as they're going into adulthood. Because that changes, it changes the way their lives are shaped. Because I said before, it affects their choices. It expands their choices because they know why they're making what choices they're making. For midlife women, it is exactly the same process in reverse, because we've spent our whole lives not having had that as you know, some of us have. We've had really great mentors and aunts and, you know, like elder type figures in our lives that have guided, but most of us haven't, because for the most part, humans aren't great at understanding a lot of this stuff, or we've been conditioned to not be great at understanding it. So for midlife women, they never had that. So they've gone through life in a system that is not designed for women and not designed to be equally understanding to all parties, because it's you know, patriarchy in itself. It's not really about male and women. It's not male and female. It's about control and dominance and hierarchy. And I'm here and you're there. And if I'm here, that means you underneath me have to do what I want you to do. So for that, I think that, so for midlife women, it's the opposite end of that scale. And it's like, okay, what are all the things I've learned how I should behave and what I should do, and where have I kind of abandoned myself in micro moments? All because, you know, the phrase, like, I love this phrase, it's like a death by a thousand cuts, and it dates back to an ancient Chinese horrible torturous way to die. So it's not one massive injury; it's millions. It's tiny, thousands and thousands of tiny little cuts, each one on their own insignificant. And they're the moments that we have gone through our whole lives ignoring. The tiny little moments that we went, oh, I won't say anything.
Mm.
You know, all of those, I better not. I don't want to cause a fuss. I don't want to upset anyone. You know, all those tiny little moments. And by the time we get to midlife and menopause hits and all those hormones, those nurturing hormones drop, and all of a sudden we don't really care quite so much what other people think. And then all of a sudden, you know, we are wanting to own who we are. And so it's helping understand that process. How can you really step into your wisdom years? Because that's what they are. This kind of menopause is, oh, it's the end and it's this. It's like, it's not. This is your wisdom time. This is your next phase. This is where you get to own and stand in the world as a powerful woman who knows her stuff and has all of this experience. And how you treat yourself and how you are in this moment, that that gives the teens permission to do it themselves as well. And that's how we grow. So that's why that's my, I want to be the person that I needed when I was 15, because it was 15, you know, that I started making the decisions that really affected my entire life trajectory. And then when I started doing the work in my sort of, after I nearly died in my mid-30s, and after I started doing the work in that, after that period, I realized all of this stuff that I could have learned and I could have known. And so that's it. It's like the teen girls come into the world. It's creating space for their becoming as who they are and who they want to be, not what they're told. And for women, it's kind of, okay, well, you've done all of this. Let's go back and let's undo that so you can step in and own that voice that's been there the whole time.
Yeah, menopause is definitely one of those things. I just read an amazing quote because you said like the quote said basically like, who am I and why was I doing this to myself like all those years? This is not me at all. And this is also a hormonal thing for sure. Because there are certain parts of our lives where hormones just go either sideways or through the roof. Like birth is one of those things, pregnancy, I mean, there are moments in life which are really significant, and hormones are a big and significant part of it. So yeah, it's so important what you said. We're coming close to the end of this amazing interview. I'm so glad that it went so fast, to be honest.
It
I'm
did
just
go
checking the
quickly.
time. Yeah. What is one truth or reminder you wish every girl or every woman listening to this podcast could carry with her today?
Your worth does not have to be earned. It's inherent. It was there from the moment you were born. It will be there until the moment you pass on. And the only reason you don't feel it is because you've been taught not to. Being messy and not having all the answers and not being perfect is absolutely fine. We all are. Most of us are just good at hiding it. I think that's it. I think it's just, I think I wrote down a line before and I don't know where I put it. And it's just, you're not broken. I can't find where it is, but it's, you're not broken. You are not behind. You are exactly where you are because you're human, and that is okay. And you are still figuring it out. We all are. Not one of us has the answers. Not even the gurus that tell us that they do, because they're not
and
us.
there are so many of them.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Everybody has an opinion. I spoke about this in someone the other day. Everyone has an opinion, but no one is in your life,
True. Yeah.
living your life. It is just their opinion. It's not, it's not your life, and you do not have to take everything on board that everybody says.
Yeah, and also nobody knows and nobody understands what's going on in someone's lives. Even if you say it, they don't feel it. So it's
No.
really like a mystery. So I totally agree with what you've said. Thank you so much for being
Thank
my
you.
guest. It was such a lovely conversation, and I think that this is going to hit deep because it's really meaningful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You take care. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.